Welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you the steps necessary to update the software or calibration files on the body control module for my 2014 Chevrolet Caprice PPV. I performed this operation a couple weeks ago, but I didn't have necessary equipment to videotape it safely. Please be warned that this is a process which could result in the bricking or disabling of a control module within your vehicle. Even if I show you the steps and they worked for me, they may not work for you, and the equipment on the screen is not inexpensive, so make sure you fully understand what you're doing and proceed at your own risk. I will try to cover as much as I can in this particular video on what I did to update the body control module on my 2014 Chevrolet Caprice PPV to enable a couple of features that should have been enabled when the vehicle was taken out of service from the Sheriff's Department. But again, this is an example of how I did it, and proceed at your own risk. I have a Windows laptop here that's capable of running 32-bit Java runtime engine, which is required by the Java applets downloaded from the ACDelco TDS or SPS service programming software from GM and ACDelco. And then it needs to be able to communicate with a J2534 compatible device. In my case, I have a GM MDI device, which is performing that function, which allows the software to talk to the vehicle. You need a stabilized power supply, such as this one here, the Medtronic's PSC 550. It provides a constant voltage during the right operation. That way, if any module gets reset and triggers like the headlights to come on, it won't have the voltage go down below what it requires for writing. You need to connect it with at least a 12-gauge extension cord if using an extension cord. At the end of the update of the body control module using the ACDelco and GM provided service programming software SPS, you'll have the opportunity in SPS to clear the DTCs, and there will be several, from the fact that upgrading the calibration files on the body control module will take that offline, and other control modules within the vehicle will be upset from the fact they couldn't communicate with the body control module. So at the end, you'll have the opportunity to clear DTCs in SPS, but that's insufficient for this particular task because there's actually some data that's necessary to be relearned to accomplish the successful reset of the body control module and make it available and fully functional within the vehicle. The electronic brake control module will have a persistent DTC that requires the invocation of a special function within the body control module to have the brake pedal position sensor learn special function invoked. So you go into that within the scan tool and invoke the learn function, and you'll see it switch from no to yes where the arrow is pointing. It's that simple. So once that's been performed, you would then exit out of this special function invocation, and you would go back over to the electronic brake control module, clear the DTC, and then have it scan for DTCs, and it should be clear of all DTCs at that point in time. So you need a tool such as the Autel MaxiSys MS906 or some other scan tool that can perform the bidirectional communications to invoke special functions. Or you could use the GDS2 software provided by ACDelco and GM, but it does require a subscription for 3 days for $57 to run that software. Since I have the Autel MaxiSys MS906 tool, I'm going to use that since it's free. I already own it, and we'll demonstrate that process of clearing those DTCs using that tool. So let's get into the demonstration. First, we're going to test the connectivity to the GM MDI device, which is my J2534 pass-through tool to be used by the SPS software today. And this is a GM MDI manager that comes with the GM MDI, and it's going to test connectivity to the device. I'm connected over USB. So when I click connect, it will actually connect to the device over the USB connection. And then we'll go look at the update function tab to see what kind of software, make sure that the software on the laptop is in sync with what's on the MDI device. The MDI device actually has a Linux operating system on it with device drivers and a bunch of other specific information necessary and software components that allow it to function as this J2534 pass-through tool. So this particular piece of software is run on the laptop to verify connectivity. Now, in my case, I have a USB connection. There is also a Wi-Fi card in this particular one, but I don't want to trust Wi-Fi connectivity while I'm uploading files to the body control module or any other module within the vehicle. So now we're going to go ahead, and if we go to the update tab, see it's not connected yet. So now we will go down and connect to the device by pressing the connect button. And we see the green check mark, and it will also show that it's connected and the serial number, which those are blurred out. Now that we've confirmed that we actually can talk to the device, so it's done an initial communication with it and it's connected over USB, Now, if we go back to the MDI update tab, we can see the version of the software that's running on the MDI device and the version date, or the date that it was released. And we can see that the PC and the MDI have the same, or at least compatible software. And I know that they're the same because I updated them the same date. So this device is functional. So we should be able to go ahead and disconnect from this device. Again, this is a diagnostic tool to test the connectivity to the device. It is not necessary to be running while the SPS is uploading the files to the body control module or any other controller within the vehicle. This is just to test the connectivity between the laptop and the MDI. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect, and then we can move on to getting into ACDelco TDS. I'm now going to get into the ACDelco TDS website, which is their technical delivery system, which it shows on the screen. And that is used to buy subscriptions to various components necessary that you want to use. In my particular case, I use this vehicle programming software option here, where it includes 24-month access to calibration file updates for one particular VIN. You can buy additional VINs necessary for $40 each for the 24-month period for that particular VIN. And there's also other subscriptions available, such as the GDS2 software, which I did buy a subscription. You'll see that in just a moment for 3 days. It's for $57. And you can use that to then diagnose your vehicle. If you have an aftermarket scan tool, which I do have access to, and I'll show you later in the video where I use that to perform a special function necessary after the body control module is updated. But you can purchase subscription to GDS2 or any other software that complies with the J2534 protocol. You can use that software to access the vehicle. In my particular case, I'm going to use SPS to get in and update the body control module calibration files. So first off, we need to log into the ACDelco website, TDS website, and there's a login section over here, which I blurred out the login name and password. And once you do that, it'll actually send a verification code to you in email each time. So I'm going to have to pause just a moment for that to show up, and when that does, I will return. We now have the verification code, which I'm going to type in over here. All right, we're ready to log in with the verification code. Now, I must warn you that the terms and conditions are something you have to agree to every time, and I am performing this on my vehicle. I am a business performing this on a vehicle that I own, so you must fully understand the terms and conditions provided by ACDelco, and you must agree to them before you can proceed. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of this and agree. You can see my subscription information at this point, and you can see that I have a GDS2 subscription from the end of April, which is that diagnostic software that I mentioned a little bit earlier from GM. It is a Java applet that you can purchase the right to use for 3 days for $57. I did, just to make sure there wasn't anything in the vehicle that my scan tool wasn't picking up, and my scan tool and GDS2 both showed basically the same stuff. So it's a good diagnostic thing. If you have no tool at all, and this is a way to do it, you can buy a subscription for a few days of use and use that. And then you need a tool like the GM MDI, a J2534 tool that allows you to communicate with the vehicle. The other subscription which I have is the vehicle programming software, and you'll see if I go click on view, it has a VIN subscriptions, and this is good until April 21st, 2022. And there's a VIN which I blurred out. You'll probably see the first few characters just to show that it's really starting with the 6, which is the Holden in Australia area. So that's the VIN actually for my 2014 Chevrolet Caprice. And again, I'm doing this on my vehicle. I understand the risks. You need to comply with all the terms and conditions and make sure that you're doing it in a manner that you're not going to brick your vehicle. If you perform this function, it's at your own risk. Please understand that. So I'm just demonstrating what I did to update my body control module for entertainment purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the VIN, which is going to switch us over to a different website here. It actually opens up, and it was looking for software at that point where there's a little pop-up, and it actually found all the pieces in place, and there's pieces necessary to run the service programming system, the SPS component here. And so there's drivers necessary to get installed to talk to the J2534 tool, and that can be somewhat of a pain because there was an update in the last month or so that required elevated privileges on the laptop to get that installed correctly without it prompting every single time, and it never satisfied the requirement. So I got that taken care of in April, and then you were presented with this menu here. Now the SPS, again, Service Programming System, is what I'm going to be using to upload the calibration file updates to the body control module. But there are things that you can actually access outside of this without having to have an account. I believe there's an SPS info that you can get into, which will let you look up calibration information, and you don't need to pay anything for that. So it lets you look up what you would want to have on your vehicle, or should have on your vehicle, or what you do have on your vehicle. It lets you put in your VIN, and it gives you an itemized list of various things that are available for that VIN. But in my particular case, in this example today, I'm going to be using the Service Programming System link here. Now that we've clicked on the SPS link, we're over on this warning page about before you start, and here is where it's warning you that you must have Java 32-bit software installed and functional, and the Java applets that are downloaded by invoking this software require a 32-bit version of the Java runtime engine. So that's a bit of a pain to get installed. Everything is 64-bit primarily today, and this is a Windows 10 laptop running. It's a 64-bit version of a laptop running 64-bit operating system, but it does have the 32-bit Java runtime engine installed, and I'm actually running Internet Explorer, which seems to be preferred in this particular case, not Microsoft Edge, to run the whole operation here. So I'm running 32-bit Internet Explorer with 32-bit Java runtime engine. So I've complied with the requirements on this particular page. Now we're going to go over here and click on Start SPS. We've now selected SPS, and now we've gone into the applet, and once it's downloaded from the server, and now it's asking us for which tool we're going to be communicating with the vehicle through, and that is going to be the J2534 tool, which in my case is that GM MDI tool. We're not replacing and programming the ECU, we're just reprogramming it with the different calibration files. Next. The ignition was off. I verified the battery was fully charged. I have an AGM battery in the vehicle. I used an AGM trickle charger last night to get it fully charged, and then I switched it over to the Medtronic's power supply, which is the steady power supply that I'm showing you in this video. It's necessary to maintain the voltage in the vehicle across any kind of load that comes up through the programming process, so that it does not interrupt the write process of the calibration files to any of the control modules, in this case the BCM. So that's why I have that steady power supply in use here. It's kind of pricey, but worth it. If you brick a module, you'll wish you had it. A trickle charger or battery charger is not sufficient necessarily to anticipate the full or handle the full demands coming from things like headlights and all that turning on potentially by resetting modules that take place during the programming process. So it's critical that you have a steady power supply connected to the vehicle's electrical system. I have the ignition turned on now with the engine off. The J2534 Tool is connected to the data link connector to the OBD2 port over that cable. The 2534 Tool is connected to the PC. We saw that with the GM MDI manager, confirmed that connectivity. And now the J2534 Tool is on, which we confirmed as well with the MDI manager. And then after programming, there might be DTC set, depending on what you're programming. In this particular case, the body control module is a fairly critical module to the overall vehicle. There will likely be DTC set and other modules in the vehicle that claim that it couldn't talk to the body control module, which is kind of anticipated here from the fact that we're taking it offline to perform programming. So there will be an option at the end to clear DTCs within SPS. You can choose that option there, or you can defer that with go into another scan tool, diagnostic software products such as GDS2 provided by ACDelco and GM. In my particular case, I'll show you using my Autel MaxiSys MS906. So let's go on to next. We're going to pick the vehicle. I've looked under Chevrolet. It does not show Caprice, just for North America. So of course it is a Holden produced vehicle. 2014 Caprice. And we're trying to retrieve the VIN from the vehicle. and it has successfully retrieved the VIN, which I've blurred on the screen. You're only going to see the first 3 or so. The 6G3, the 6 means it's from that area of the world, Australia. And so we'll go on, since that is the correct VIN, but you want to verify that is the VIN that you're intending on in case you're plugged into a vehicle you don't know about or different ECU VIN is stored. And now there are a variety of compatible supported controllers in the vehicle. Not necessarily all of them are actually in the vehicle, but the one we're wanting to work with today is the one identified as K9 body control module. I'm going to be performing a programming operation only because that gives us the 4 configuration options I'm looking to change, which is something that can be changed only on PPV type vehicles. There's a service bulletin from GM allowing service departments to change the calibration after contacting various departments with the GM to get authorization to do that. What I'm doing through my company is I'm setting up the vehicle back to normal operations, which in the service bulletin states that any features that are turned off should be turned back on before selling the vehicle. When I received the vehicle, the rear door window switches were still inoperative, and the automatic headlights and daytime running lights were inoperative. Some might not consider that a problem. I actually prefer daytime running lights here. Makes it more visible. I used to be a motorcycle rider, so that kind of feature is kind of important to me. And in Canada, you actually cannot turn off daytime running lights due to their equivalent of federal law for that particular feature. It's noted right in the service bulletin. So I'm just returning the features back to their enabled state, which makes it more functional as a regular family vehicle. Per that service bulletin, it says they should have been done that, re-enabled before selling the vehicle, but didn't happen. Depends on your interpretation of that statement, but my interpretation is I'm going to change them so they are operational for me as a regular passenger vehicle. So let's go on to the next part. And it's communicating with the body control module. It's seeing what is available on the body control module currently. And here are the configuration options as supplied when I got the vehicle. Now the auxiliary battery, which we see is the first configurable option, of course it's the 2014 Caprice 6.0 liter L77 engine. Then the auxiliary battery, it did have the hardware in the vehicle. I pulled it out, but I'm going to leave that feature enabled because I didn't want the body control module to turn off the power to the connector back there. I actually have a backup camera harness that's tapping into that. And there's been no functional codes by removing the auxiliary battery or anything, so I'm just going to leave that feature enabled, and I've already tested this a couple weeks with that feature left enabled after reprogramming the body control module on my first attempt before I recorded it on video. So what I'm going to be changing here is the 2 middle ones, the rear window door inoperative and the daytime running lamps, 6 and 5, and VVS. It's not WS, it's VVS. So I'm going to switch these. Now these are basically negative features. So you're making the rear door window switches inoperative, and you're making the daytime running lamps inoperative where it says like not required. So I'm basically going to flip these around where it has the minus sign on the front, and it says not equipped. So 2 negatives make a positive. That basically enables the rear door window switches. And the same thing for VVS. There's no way to separate these two as far as daytime running lamps versus automatic headlamps. So when you change this to the negative version of this, it enables both of those features, which for me is perfectly fine. I've had comments from people that when I showed the features after they were enabled on the vehicle, they asked, well, can you just make it automatic headlights? And based on what's given here in the configuration screen, no, you have to turn on both or leave both in. No daytime running lights and manual operation of headlights, or daytime running lights and automatic headlights. That's the only option you have there. So those are the 2 I'm changing. The theft alarm doesn't seem to work in this vehicle when enabled, so I'm leaving that as it is. Where it's disabled, it was not on the RPO list of codes on the SPID in the trunk, so I'm leaving that one off. And then we click on next. What it should then do is compare what's on or in the ECU at this point for calibration files for the various features, and then looking at the features I've selected, it's going to have different calibration files for a couple different things. It looks like the interior lighting calibration gets changed here. I believe that's the one for the rear door window switches. Since it is changing and it's related to interior, that's my guess. And then the automatic external lighting calibration is also changing. And pretty much everything else, I believe, is the same on this. And the reason for them being virtually the same on every other calibration file is when I did update the calibration files on the body control module a couple of weeks ago, it did take about 6-7 minutes to perform that operation because there were several more files to be updated at that point. And now that I'm only toggling 2 of them to show you basically the demonstration of this, it will go far quicker than it did before. And that's another reason for the having the steady power supply, because an extended calibration upload can have a longer exposure time of windows where the power could fluctuate. So it's important to have that steady voltage supply on the vehicle's electrical system during the uploading of calibration files. In my particular case, it'll come up with an initial estimate of 17 minutes, and that's a very wild guess, and then it goes through and finds that it uploads a little bit, and then it'll race through the update of the calibration files for those 2 that are actually getting uploaded. And it will take probably less than 30 or 45 seconds here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. And it's going to begin the download of those files to the laptop. Then the laptop, through the SPS, the service programming system software, is going to then, over the J2534 Tool, send them to the body control module. So you have to be sure when you click on Next here, because this is your last chance before it starts doing it. So download complete is noted up here, which is almost instantaneous. And then we're doing the reprogramming. You hear the bells going off here on the instrument panel or through the radio system, and it will do a reprogram of like 22,682 bytes there. It pauses there for a little bit, at least I've seen, and then it will race through the last part of it here pretty quickly. And then after that, it will come up with a screen with some additional information about finishing off writing down some information or printing it out for warranty information. And okay, we completed, and we moved on to this screen, and it says action complete, body control module programming K9, and it shows the date and time. And then a warranty claim code. If this were a warranty thing, I'll blur that out just in case that's specific to my vehicle in any way. I'm not performing this as a warranty operation. In fact, the service bulletin that I mentioned before is not it states that any of those changes are to be customer pay operations. So none of these, usually what I'm changing, would be considered warranty. But the general flow here is at the end, there potentially is a warranty claim code that the service tech would have to supply for the paperwork. And then down below it says clearing the DTCs will erase the history and controllers and all that. I'm going to leave them there. Like I said, I'm going to show you what's present in the various submodules and other controllers in the vehicle. And often the other controllers get upset that the body control module goes offline while being programmed, so there'll probably be some U codes in the other ones. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. And if you wanted to, at this point, you could proceed on with the same VIN to perform other updates, or you could click on New and you could select a brand new vehicle. And if you click Cancel, that's the termination of SPS for this particular vehicle. So I'm going to click Cancel. And then we're back to where you could potentially start SPS, or that whole TIS secondary, the TIS to web service GM website page, which is where we were sent after we clicked on SPS in the ACDelco TDS page. So I'm going to go ahead and click Log Out over here. And yes, I'm confirming the logout. So we can close out this page. And then here's the screen again for ACDelco TDS, where we launched SPS from. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this to close that out. And then I'm going to click on this to log out. Next, let's go over and check for codes. And we're going to have to do the relearn procedure for the in the body control module for the brake pedal position calibration and position information, so that we make the electronic brake controller module happy, because it forgets that information with the programming of the BCM. So let's move on to that. I'm now going to use my MaxiSys MS906. I've connected to it remotely, and so you can see it on the larger screen here. And I'm going to click on MaxiSys. I'm going to go into Diagnostics, GM, and just standalone. And I did have a malfunction indicator light and check engine light active on the instrument panel. So we should at least find the DTC, the one DTC that I was expecting. So we can tell it to go ahead and read. You'll see part of that VIN, but not the whole VIN, but it has properly detected the VIN and read it from the vehicle. And yes, it is the 2014 Caprice, again, the proper VIN. It is the 6-liter. And I'm going to have it do a diagnosis, auto scan, so it's going to go through all the various submodules. And there's a couple here. And it's probably related to communications, since we interrupted the data bus for the various modules. So I'm going to just drill into a couple of these. I did see this one time on the vehicle after programming. So if we drill into this, it's probably going to be a U code of some sort. Yeah, it basically lost communications with the body control module. Since we were programming it, I can understand that. So I'm going to have it go out, and now if we'd chosen to clear DTCs within SPS, it probably wouldn't be showing those. We'd probably just have the one, but I'm going to do a quick erase. All right. Electronic brake control module. Again, this is the one that's going to be upset about the fact that the brake pedal resting position is not learned. So let's go into this one. Look at the trouble codes. And this is why the check engine light was requested, because the brake pedal position sensor calibration is not learned. This is what I was telling you about. So this was a C0278-4B. So if I clear it, it's still going to come back because it's not learned. So the only way to really solve this is to have it learn. So we actually need to go to body control module. We have halogen headlights, special functions. And this is where the brake pedal position sensor learn is located. So I'm going to click on that. And normally you'd be in the vehicle. I'm outside at the moment. This procedure is fairly simple. All we need to do is apply the parking brake, which is already applied in this vehicle, and then start the learn procedure. So I'll click continue. And you simply click the learn button, and it takes just a moment to have it perform the learn process. And it switches from no to yes on the brake pedal position sensor learned position. So that's it. Now we can go out and make sure that the code has been cleared. So I press escape, that exits this procedure, and then press escape again to go out one level and escape again. And the body control module is checked, and there's no DTCs for that, but let's scroll up to the electronic brake control module, which still has the one fault. And we're going to go and read the codes again to make sure that we still have the one that we think we have, and that's still the same one we saw before. And now I'm going to go ahead and clear that. And it doesn't seem to have a fault at this point in time, since we have had it learn the brake pedal position sensor info. I now am going to escape out of this level and then have it come back in and rescan everything to make sure that it doesn't find any DTCs in any of the modules. Make sure that we've truly cleared all the DTC conditions. We've completed the programming of the body control module. We've gone through and cleared the DTCs that occurred because we were programming the body control module. Several other modules were upset with the fact that they couldn't talk to the body control module. And we've cleared those. And then the electronic brake control module had a DTC set, but the actual programming of that was not something that was directly accessible in the EBCM. It was actually down in the body control module itself. So within special functions of the body control module, we invoke this brake pedal sensor learn, and other scan tools that are able to do bidirectional communications and invoke special functions should be able to access the same function. And luckily my MaxiSys MS906 was able to do that. Now, if you had a subscription to the GDS software, GDS2 software from GM, you could go through and invoke it that way using the GM MDI device as the connectivity to the vehicle. But in this case, I don't have the subscription active at this point. It was 3 days for $57. So I have a tool that can do that. So it was free for me to go in and use the MaxiSys, but you could also purchase the GDS2 software for use on your vehicle. And as I stated, I think in the very beginning, there's nothing particular to this GM MDI device that is required to be the thing to use to program the vehicle. You could use any J2534 compatible device. That was part of the requirement, that any device that complies with those protocols should be able to program the vehicle as long as there's drivers on the laptops for it to successfully communicate with that particular device. And we saw that in the MDI software. Before we started this, we verified connectivity using the MDI manager, and then with that being present, we were able to then go ahead and invoke the go to the ACDelco TDS site, log in successfully, and then go over to the TIS to web site that it switches you over to for the service programming service for GM to be able to update the software on the vehicle. Again, the subscription is 2 years for $40, which I think is kind of a deal. If you're using it once, maybe not so great, but in this case, those features are worth $40 to me, so I was more than happy to do that. But next, let's go ahead and get things disconnected and start up check the functionality of things. Well, that's quite a bit of information, and I hope you found at least part of it informative or something you hadn't seen before. And I know I wanted to get the calibration files updated on the vehicle, and it was going to be quite expensive to go through the dealership for a one-time shot at this, getting these particular features enabled again, which I believe should have been re-enabled by the Sheriff's Department before this particular vehicle was taken out of service. Personal opinion there, but because I wanted to get those turned back on, and I found this process to perform this by using the subscription with ACDelco TDS to get calibration files available for my event for 2 years for $40. That's fairly cheap overall, but again, the hardware involved here is fairly expensive. But if I use this multiple times, the cost should come down by amortizing it over the number of things that I update on the vehicle or other vehicles. So if you found the information in this video helpful, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, it's free, and make sure you hit that bell notification to get notified when I upload new videos on the channel. I'm going to put a link in the upper corner and down in the description section that will give you a link to the video where I demonstrate the features on this vehicle, and it's quite nice to have them re-enabled. Thanks for watching.